how can the industry be taken to a level of becoming an employer of labor that is so much lacking in Nigeria? That's probably more tangible to our discussion in economic empowerment than really the distribution.
Thank you. That's why I called it a corporate. I think the area, your answer is your question is very important, and the answer is quite simple. I think I had wanted to tag my presentation a corporate takeover of the African black gold, that is the Nollywood. There are so many ways to actually impact on the lives of the movie enthusiasts, the movie consumers, and create labor and employment. We have 774 local governments in Nigeria. And I remember in those days where they bring cinemas to our field in the night, and Nigerians are good and they're very loyal when it comes to money issue. They are very honest. They said, if you don't pay so amount in kobos, just small money, don't come to watch this cinema on the field. People will gather the other side. They will use something as a barricade. You come into a view until you pay them, and people will pay. So if small, just local cinemas are established in 704 local government area, very little amount in such a small scale, you will see millions of dollars it will generate, and it will employ 774 individuals. Then from there, you take it up to some other things, because in Nigeria, movie distribution, actually, there has not been actually the real employment needed. We have only conventional market in Alaba, Anambra State, that is Onitsha, the business nerve center of West Africa, and Aba and Port Harcourt. We don't have outlets in Abuja. We don't have in Ghana and the rest of them. So, but if we have people that can represent physical distribution channels, that's another huge way of revenue generation. You see? So there are so many untapped potentials, untapped channels in Nigeria movie industry that has not actually been tapped. You've not done physical distribution, and some people are shying away from it. They need already made business. Everybody is jumping into
all right. Thank you so much, sir. I do appreciate that, and I would like to segue on that and go to Kanayo Okanayo to hopefully enlighten us on how piracy can be protected in the movie industry. Over to you, Kanayo Okanayo.
Hello, everyone. It's indeed a great privilege and honor to be amongst those who are discussing today's topics. I want to thank especially the Chief Executive Officer of Budge Bank, Investment Bank, Dr. Bailey. I'm singling him out because of his mention of a movie, a motion picture project in Nigeria with a Nollywood producer. For those of you who may not be conversant with my name, I am a pioneer of the movie industry in Nigeria, and I'm a top player. I will stop the introduction at that. The Nollywood industry has given birth to a lot of industries in Africa, that is West African sub-region, Central Africa, and so on, because we have, through what we have done, created jobs for our people. So what I think we should be talking about in changing the narrative is, how do we use the tool of entertainment to create more jobs for the youth of Africa? So I have decided that in taking the bull by the horns, we should encourage more collaborations. If you want to get the youth of Africa, I'm not just talking about Nigeria at this moment, to be productive, so that we can end the issues of kidnapping, rape, and so on, we can engage the youth of Africa in the area of creativity. This is an experience I have gotten from our industry here in Nigeria, and we can replicate that all over Africa. Yes, the last speaker was talking about cinema houses. In fact, it is a shame, very big shame, that even Nigeria, as big as it is, doesn't have up to 100 cinema houses. And we know the content we create from the videos and so on, you need the cinema houses to play this content, and they generate employment. More especially, I want Budge Investment Bank to please, I want Dr. Bailey to tell me, I want to know the areas of the Nollywood producers' involvement in this, so we know whether content is being created. Because we can create more content with establishing production houses. That is one way of changing the narrative. When we establish more production houses here and more cinema houses, we can generate employment, which will create more harmony among the youth of Africa. But in all, as a final and in conclusion, let us collaborate with diaspora in creating a very peaceful environment by providing jobs for the youth through our content development and creativity. We have many of our young people who are very creative. They need just the vista of opportunity provided by the industry we have to be able to discover further their potentials. That I have witnessed in the industry for the past 28 years. And that I know is what the diaspora can do in changing the narrative. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Kanayo, Okanayo, and thank you for your recent achievement in completing your PhD in law and the JD. So welcome aboard. But there's a question that is significant. I understand we heard what all that has been said. When it comes to global impact, I would like to shift gear now to this. And if the answer is not there, some members of the panel could also pitch in. The image of Nigeria globally is work in progress. And that same goes for many African countries. It's not just Nigeria. What is your platform doing to rebrand? And it's not something you have to answer. And again, I can call on Dr. Val and what have you, and see if there are some plans in place to make sure holistic evolution requires holistic participation. And I believe the platform of news media and communication is a very powerful one. What are some of the things you proffer?
All right, thank you very much. On my Instagram, I have almost about 500,000 people following me on Instagram. And last week, I tried to deal with this issue of branding or giving us a new image. And part of the things I advocated is that we can change the narrative, but our people need to change their way of life. Now, I think Ambassador Paolo or something was talking about the issue of trust. I did send a test, and I said to everyone on this platform, trust is a scarce commodity in the African market. Trust is a scarce commodity in the African market. We need to change a lot of things in Africa for the storyline to change. We can rebrand Africa. Take the issue of politics, for instance. The people who are doing politics in Africa are almost like getting to the level of not human beings, but animals. How can people do politics to the extent of sacrificing fellow individuals to serve the people? How can people do politics? You want to serve a people and you want them dead, engaging in violence. What we do in Nollywood is a social commentary, social realism. We do our stories based on realities of the moment. So what I'm trying to say here is that we will change our storylines when our people decide to change the way they live and do politics. We need to have, just like in terms of leadership, a man goes into a political office. A man you knew as 2 years ago did not own one car. In 1 year, the man is a billionaire. How can you explain that? African leaders, African educators, we need everybody to come on board. Even those who are in the diaspora need to put their hands on this field. We must say no to the things that happen in Africa. We are keeping too much, we are keeping quiet in the diaspora. A leader steals. You even know where he has stolen and kept his wealth abroad. You all keep quiet in the diaspora. That is killing Africa. We must stop it. The only way we can tell our stories, finally, the only way we can tell our stories is by renegotiating our thought processes and behaving as people who God created with intellect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Kizito and Kanayo Okanayo, Dr. Kanayo Okanayo, and it's good to have you as part of the platform. You have challenged all of us. We're trying to empower, but we need to be empowered before we can empower. And that's what he's saying here. Diaspora need to provide check and balance, considering that, believe me, the guy with the whip is not going to take off the shackles off of your ankle. You have to force him to. Please, it's well noted. Diaspora, if we are underutilized, we need to ask ourselves, are we doing something to make sure we are leveraged to the max? So having said this, I would like a man who also knows how to tie this up globally in the environmental world and also in personal and social development to give us his 2 or 3 minutes summation of the projects that are out there and how this could relate to empowering and also bringing about economic empowerment throughout Africa and the rest of the world. Please, I would like you to join us to welcome Mr. Sujit Ravindran. Please, Mr. Ravindran, please. Sujit?
Yes. So, Joe, thank you. And thank you for this distinguished group. It's a very intense, passionate conversation that's going on. And I think it was Seish who introduced the importance of focusing on the people. And it is about realizing the immense human potential that Africa has to offer, not just for Africa, but also for the rest of the world, that I feel I want to advocate. And you're all an example of that. The distinction that you achieved and the passion that you express in your own life, for your families, for your community, for your land, is a testimony of that human potential. And I'm a very lucky soul because I've had many opportunities to visit the beautiful land of Africa. And I'm from India, so I look at everything foreign with wonder in eyes. And Africa was always full of wonder. Early 2000s, I was part of a project to bring healthcare to women and children in East Africa. And during that visit, that was the first time I was blown away by the incredible ingenuity, resourcefulness that the average Africans have. So rather than go there and become teachers and preachers, I first learned to listen. Much later, this was in the late 2000s, I had an opportunity to visit South Africa. And that time was actually as part of the release of one of my books on leadership. And I had wanted to interview Dr. Mandela. And I spent quite some time in Johannesburg and Cape Town. And once again, the ingenuity and the resourcefulness of the average Africans was mind-blowing. I was always left wondering if this is the resourcefulness that Africans have, then what is holding them back from going back to becoming the cradle of civilization and very prosperous lands? And it is to this human potential that I wanted to speak to at a micro level. At a macro level, there are distinguished speakers speaking to what needs to move, what needs to transform. At a micro level, I have a number of friends in Africa who are part of a conversation to help realize the collective human potential in Africa. And if we can ask every single human being there, what does it take for you to realize your infinite human potential? Then we don't need to import into Africa the market economical models, the capitalistic models, the proven successful models of globalization, etc., from Asia or from the West. That is completely redundant. The focus, I believe, and I'm involved in a number of projects in nation building in India around the same theme, that is realizing human potential. Late 2000s, I was fortunate to co-found a nonprofit center where we developed some frameworks and approaches and assessments and methodologies, etc., to help realize human potential. And every time it comes down to a couple of things. All these old or young souls, Evelyn was passionately speaking about women's empowerment. Every time when we adopt an attitude of listening to the average Africans, ask them, what is your why? Why do you feel you exist? What makes you passionate? What are your talents and values? And what is your own, very own voice? We start understanding each individual speaking about their power, their passion. What is it that they can do if the diaspora, if the rest of the good-willing humanity can not impose, but enable them, rather than impose what works in the West or what works in the East, rather than impose, just enable. It could be financially, it could be by bringing education, it could be by bringing intellectual property or technology if needed, but just enable rather than impose, and hold space for the people, for the common Africans to realize their human potential. I have stories in India.
Sushit, I think you have to finish your talk because there's still a lot of, but it's very interesting. Thank you.
I will. I'm actually done. Just sharing this statistic of recognizing that one human being, just one human being who's able to realize his human potential is able to create jobs for 250 people. So I want to champion realizing human potential. And of course, there is not enough time now. But offline, I'd love to expand this conversation to see how I can also support this grand mission of helping Africa find its voice. Thank you. For later.
Thank you so much, my brother. And Sujit, that was very insightful and is in alignment with what Colonel Brian Stacey had said earlier, is in alignment with what Honorable Ambassador Paolo Bensami had said, is in alignment with, again, the holistic approach in realizing that we should not no stone unturned when we have to face the challenges ahead of us. We cannot engage Manchester or Liverpool with a second 11, and then you are doomed to fail. You cannot fight Mike Tyson without wearing your gloves or he'll bite your ears. So having said all this, I would like us to realize it requires the collective effort of all stakeholders, directly or indirectly or by association, or otherwise. We are part of the solution. We are the benefactors. and it is our world. And it's not just an African thing, it's not a US thing. All the issues we have talked about here, I know for sure His Excellency Ambassador Perry is taking note for his summation. But having said that, I would like to give the floor, if possible, Chris, to Her Excellency Dr. Arikana. She's been trying, but apparently she's on the road and traveling and trying to get on the phone. Chris, see if you can help me to identify and welcome in.
She's unmuted.
Her Excellency.
Yes, so Joe, she's unmuted, so she should be able to speak.
Please, Dr. Arikana, you are muted. Proceed. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Yes, ma'am.
Please continue.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I'm sure you all are having a wonderful meeting and incredible deliberations on this very important subject. Dr. Madu wanted me to talk to you all about the role of the African diaspora in the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. For those of you who are not familiar with this monumental decision, probably the best thing that has ever happened to the continent in the history of the entire continent in terms of movement in a positive direction. This is something that the African heads of state, the Pan-African leaders, had hoped to accomplish when they met in 1963 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where they came up with a compromise decision, which was the Organization of African Unity. They had met precisely with the understanding that as a divided Africa into the tiny little economies that we are today, there's no way that Africa could survive. They met with understanding that Africa was a continent that wanted to grow up to be like the United States of America. When the US realized that as individual states, as Delaware, as Montana, as Tennessee, they could not survive. But that if they came together and created the United States of America, they became a powerhouse, which they are today. Africa was intentionally divided into the tiny little economies so that Africa could forever be defeated and dominated. We failed to reach a consensus in 1963, and every year the issue of an Africa speaking with one voice was raised, and year in and year out since 1963, the heads of states failed to reach a consensus on this very important decision. Finally, piecemealing it, however, in April of 2018, the African heads of states agreed on what we are now calling the African Continental Free Trade Area. What that means is come January of 2021, when the African Continental Free Trade Area is going to be implemented, Africa is going to enter the world market as one customs union and not 55 customs unions. Africa is going to speak with one voice when it comes to the issues of trade, which is one singularly issue that was denied to Black people, not only in Africa, but Black people around the globe, which is economic empowerment. Until we attain economic empowerment, Africa is going nowhere. Until we attain economic liberation, Black people and Black people as a race, no matter where you find us, we will continue to be disrespected. It is therefore a monumental decision that every Black person must understand that it is something that we must all support. But you must also understand, where are we trying to go with this decision? What does it really mean in your day-to-day life? And that's something I'm finding that a lot of people are struggling to connect with what is happening in the continent. What does it mean to you on a personal level? What does it mean to you as your family? What does it mean to you as your community, as your continent, and as your race? It all comes together. It all adds up to one thing. It adds up to George Floyd. George Floyd and many others must not occur, but they occur because economically we're poor. Economically, we're not liberated. So they can do whatever they want to do to us. We will always be complainers. This decision is so important that it is the only hope for Africa to regain that which was denied to us during independence, which was economic liberation. It is our only hope to regain that which was denied to the slaves when they were freed. They were denied even the 40 acres and a mule. Economic liberation is what has been denied Black people since the white men set foot on the continent of Africa over 600 years ago. 600 years later, we are still struggling to regain our economic liberation. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the reason why the African Continental Free Trade Area is a monumental decision that we all must understand and understand it fully. It is about you today. It is about your children. It is about your grandchildren and generations to come. And above all, it is about us, the Black race, to reclaim our former glory that was stolen from us when the white men landed on the continent of Africa. It is a decision that we all must understand and we must support fully. What does that mean? What does the African Continental Free Trade Area mean? It means come January, the boundaries that have kept African countries from communicating with each other, from trading with each other, from needing a passport to go from one country to the other, those boundaries are going to be melted away. Those non-tariff barriers that have been creating difficulties for us are in the process of being melting away. 90% of the goods that are going to be traded within Africa are going to be duty-free. That is huge, my brothers and sisters. That is humongous. Currently, intra-Africa trade, 90% is via maritime. Intra-Africa trade is expected to quadruple in the next 5 years. That means maritime services are going to quadruple in the next 5 years. Well, I have news for you. Not a single vessel that is carrying and ferrying goods around the continent is owned by a Black company. That brings me to Marcus Garvey, the man who had a vision, the man who understood what it took for Black people to become truly free. He talked about the Black Star Line. I sit back sometimes and wonder, why has it taken us so long to address some things that are seemingly obvious and not even an issue to be discussed among other races, but are a humongous order for Black people, simply because we have been so brainwashed from such a deep psychological, subconscious level that we are suffering from what I am calling, instead of post-traumatic stress disorder, we are suffering from continuous traumatic stress disorder. But first, we must understand that we are suffering from this affliction. It is precisely the mindset that we were left at through the legacy of colonization, the legacy of slavery, that has made it mission impossible for us to come together, to do what it takes to take our Africa to a rightful place on the world stage. That rightful place that has your name. The rightful place that we as Black people have vacated for far too long. That rightful place that our children, and they're asking us, mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, there are problems with our race. There are problems in our Africa. What are you doing? What have you done? I want you to pause for a moment and answer that question truthfully. 20 years from now, your own grandchildren are going to look at you and ask you the same question, grandmother, what did you do? Grandfather, what did you do? Am I supposed to live in such a world forever? You must answer that, because you have a responsibility to do something about it. And this is why Dr. Madhu does not sleep at night. This is why Dr. Madhu and all his colleagues are bringing us to this platform to say enough is enough. So when our grandkids look at us 20 years from now, we can sit down and say, grandchildren, these were the issues. And this is what we have done. And this is where we have left. And this is where you pick up. This conversation is a crucial conversation. And it starts with those to whom much is given, much is expected. As far as some of you may be very angry with African heads of state, I can tell you about one thing. I have chosen to look at what is positive in any situation, and I have chosen to feed the good lion and allow the good lion to grow and become so big that the good lion is going to defeat and eat up and swallow the bad lion. We are human beings. Nobody's perfect. No country is perfect. No continent is without issues. I'm here to say there are a lot of good news coming out of your beloved continent of Africa. Loads of tremendous progress. 6 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world are in Africa. By 2030, half of the continent is going to be connected, internet-wise. Great innovations are coming out of Africa. And yet, no one is talking about it. It's easier for us to highlight all the negatives about Africa. And who are the people who are blowing that trumpet about negative things about Africa? It is us Black people. We are just programmed to self-destruct. And those of us who live in the diaspora, we wonder, why is it that our children want nothing to do with Africa? Well, what do you expect? They hear nothing but negativity about Africa at home. Mom and dad constantly dogging Africa. That has to change. We must embrace our Africa, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That is our beloved continent. Nobody's perfect. The rest of the other races, the rest of the other nations, they're proud of where they come from. And that's where we need to begin. For us to begin to make true changes and come to the table in the right frame of mind, we must first and foremost accept that we are Africans as Black people, regardless of where we are born. Going back to the Continental Free Trade Area, come January, the reality is the brain drain that we have experienced out of Africa, starting with slavery, followed by those who left the continent in search of greener pastures in recent years. The end result is Africa does not have the capacity, intellectual capacity that Africa needs to build the Africa we want. There's not a single African country that has the capacity to build an airport. Not a single African country that has the capacity to build a railway line. And yet we throw complaints from 10,000 miles away as to why development is not coming to Africa. Well, I'll tell you why. Development is not coming to Africa, and development is being brought by the Chinese and some Europeans simply because you and I, the African diaspora, are not there. The capacity we need to build the Africa we want is in the diaspora. We have a lot of friends wherever we live, be it in Europe, be it in the Americas. Our African diaspora, together with our friends of Africa, we have a responsibility to say, to whom much is given, much is expected. United, we have all the capacity that we need, financial and otherwise, to truly build the Africa that we want, the Africa that is sustainable, the Africa that works for us as Black people, as a race. Because we go home to build, to stay. The colonizers have been going in to take what they can, and what they cannot, at times they just destroy. Because it was not in their interest to have a stable Africa, because the stable Africa is a continent that cannot be exploited. So let's get one thing clear. Come January, the Chinese have a 100-year plan. They have their own continental strategy of how they want to see themselves develop Africa for their benefit. The Europeans have their own 100-year strategy, again, on how they want to develop Africa to their own benefit without a single interest as to how the Black people are going to benefit from it, because that is not their agenda. The people who are responsible for driving the continental agenda of Africa are the children of Africa in the diaspora. You are the missing ingredient that is needed for us to build a sustainable Africa. If you renege on that responsibility, you are reneging it for your children, your grandchildren, and generations to come. Make that clear in your mind. If we do not come together as African diaspora and strategize and come up with a continental agenda to take over come January, guess what, my brothers and sisters? This time, the Chinese are coming in for a complete sweep and takeover of your continent and your God-given inheritance. This time, the Europeans are coming in for a complete takeover. You see, what has slowed them in the past is because they had to go and register in South Africa. It takes you 2 or 3 years to register your company. And then if you want to go next door to Botswana, you start all over again, the entire process. Well, those boundaries are gone. Now they can register in one part of Africa and they can spread like wildfire throughout the continent. Are you ready for that? You as a black man, you do not lead a Chinaman to China. You as a black man, you do not lead an Indian man to India. You as a black man, you do not lead a European man to Europe. You don't lead a Russian man, a Japanese man, and an Irish man. Why then must you be led to your home, your beloved Africa, by them? It is a shame when a black man has to be brought to Africa by a non-African. And by African, I mean all people of African descent. You are African. It is just the right thing to do. We're not asking you to do what they're not already doing. We're simply saying what's right is right. What is wrong is wrong. The Chinese have their rules that protect the Chinese. The Germans have rules that protect the Germans, the Indians, everywhere else. We too must have rules that protect black people on the continent of Africa. The African Continental Development Agenda must be driven by black people, plain and simple. The question is, those of you who are in a position to make that decision, are you ready? Are you awake enough to understand that this is a do or die moment? That this is not about you, it's about your children, it's about your grandchildren, it's about your race. It's about your respect. It's about stopping you from being killed and murdered on the street simply because of the color of your skin. Those who sought out to oppress us, naturally, you don't expect to help us turn the corner, do you? We've got to pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. The African Continental Free Trade Area, the heads of states have done their part. They have paved the way. You can't complain anymore. What's needed now is for us to come together and let the heads of states know once and for all that the children of Africa are now united from the diaspora and that we are ready to take over that seat that has our name and that we are ready to drive the African Continental Agenda. We have nothing against foreign direct investment, but we are saying when they come to Africa, they must understand that us, the Africans, us, the black people, we are in charge, just like they are in charge where they come from. What's right is right. What is wrong is wrong. The African Continental Free Trade Area is an opportunity for us to build the Africa that we want. It is an opportunity for us to take our Africa to a rightful place on the world stage. It is an opportunity for us to share our Africa equally with the rest.
How are you, Diana? Could you please mute yourself? Chris, could you mute everybody except Her Excellency?
Let me conclude by saying we have an amazing opportunity to come together and build generational wealth like we have never done before. The opportunities that are getting ready to open up in Africa through the African Continental Free Trade Area are opportunities that we must take advantage of.
The ambassador, the lady. Come on. She's a female.
I think we've lost that. I thank you so much, Your Excellency, and for the global diaspora and all collaborators and stakeholders listening. The clarion call has been made. In summation, when it's all said and done, the question is going to be, or you should ask yourself, and you can cut this across all verticals and posterity, what kind of legacy are you going to leave when it's all said and done? Now we have exercised on these over 400 years of platform of independence and what have you. The key thing is not whatever the platform is has it worked? Did it yield the harvest? Did it yield the desired impact? Okay, and it's not really new that we're making a switch. I call it the 212, 212, point. But water would be cold when it's cold, when it will be hot when it's hot, it will boil. But it will never turn to steam until it's about 212 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it can move a locomotive. So we need to get to this point of action. Way back in 1215, you guys hear about the, Magna Carta, Libertatum. Okay? The barons of England had to tell King John, enough is enough, we have to be free. And that's, the history was changed afterwards. So freedom is a human right. Independence is not just a word, it should be a reality. So what I call the Queen Amina of Africa has spoken, and a word is enough for the wise. And secondly, there is always an opportunity cost. So are you willing to pay the price to bring about change that you desire? And if you are not willing, it might be a good idea to step on the side and let those who are willing to engage appropriately. There's good, bad, and ugly in every society. And she's challenging all of us to bring our own quota of value propositions to the table. Now, having said that, let's go ahead and call upon Dr. Debbie Bartlett, a lady who believes that we will never take it to the next level unless we honor the cradle of civilization, Mother Africa. Dr. Bartlett, are you there? And in the meantime, while she's getting ready, I would like to call on Dr. Val and Dr. Chimezie, Professor Chimezie, to lend in. Dr. Val, on your contribution when it comes to not addressing your company, but really addressing the intervention and value you bring to the table that adds value to the entire equation. And as for Dr. Chimezie, what you're doing in pharmacopoeia and in also bringing about advent of creating nucleuses of development to the SMEs, is very commendable. So over to you, Sesh.
Thank you. This is Dr. Val Ozibo. I'm very happy to be in this group. This is a unique group, unique in every sense. It's hard to follow behind Ambassador Arikana. Very, very difficult. She said it all. I mean, what can you say after that? Literally nothing. I'm the typical diaspora, typical, just like most of us. Born in Africa, grew up in Africa, went to medical school in Enugu, Nigeria before coming to America. But there's something I've always known. I've always known that ingenuity and creativity is not reserved to any race or society. If you leverage ingenuity and creativity with the vision and pursuit of the dream, this becomes a reality if there's a financial backing and support to make it happen. Africa has never lacked in ingenuity or creativity. What was lacking was mostly the ability to tap into this and make it a viable asset or product. We have diamonds, gold, bauxite, uranium, all of these great minerals in abundance in Africa. The Europeans have been coming to Africa for this very reason. North Americans, as in USA, have been coming. Now the Chinese, they're all putting up tents in Africa. For this same reason, like Dr. Bailey had said, with Borg, we can leverage these African countries with all these mineral resources to do the same thing that these other people, Europeans, Chinese, are doing. What they do is they go to Africa, they get the gold, diamond, they take it out, they change it and leverage it and bring a little bit of it back to Africa. Give them peanuts. Peanuts. Well, if Africans can do the same thing, why do we need a Chinese? Why do we need an European? Why do we need them? We don't. That's where this diaspora initiative comes to play. The young man who spoke, Paulo Bensami, young ambassador, spoke very well. He said everything about why. But I have to add a little to it. After the why is the how. Africa has never had an issue of thinking. We are brilliant in every ramification. Look around you. What do you see? Brilliance. If we can get the how to the why, because when you finally find the why, you now need to get the how. Okay, I have this ingenious, wonderful thing that I want to do. Fine. How? Where's the money? With the financial support, we can make this great, brilliant approach that Africans in Africa, or even more especially us in the diaspora, bring to the table for the development of Africa. We can leverage it financially and make it as big as.
Wonderful, wonderful, Dr. Val. I do appreciate the passion, and definitely I would like, considering that time is creeping right on us, I would like definitely on that last note, you talked about financial. Independence does not mean dependency. And again, could you imagine if we can use our own money to create our own value propositions instead of begging for it? You know, again, like Dr. Billy said, like you said, leverage our resources. You know, how long or how much does it take for 1,000 diasporas to contribute $1,000 to get $1 million, and then leverage that, you know, to do some capacity building. So all these things are all possible, and that's what we're asking about here. We're going to translate this aggregation of resources, you know, in cash or kind to bring about the change we desire and be a stakeholder in these businesses. It doesn't matter what the business is. The mentation of asking someone to bring their money and give you a gift, and they have done this for over 400 years, you show me the result. And we can, that roadmap is already debunked, you know. So it's very, very important when you use the word independence, you need to use it comprehensively and also be willing to understand there is an opportunity cost in everything. Go beyond thinking about yourself, invest in posterity. Now, having said this and having reference to what has happened in the previous years in other people's history, whether it is the, you know, Magna Carta, Libertatum of 1215, and so on and so forth, that liberates a bunch of people, we must unbuckle the shackles around us. Having said that, let me call upon Dr. Debbie Bartlett, and after that, I would like to call upon somebody that's been waiting for us here for a while. Yeah, Debbie Bartlett, please. Summation about 2 or 3 minutes on your economic emancipation program, please.
I honor you, Sir Joe, and the distinguished panel. Everyone was so inspiring. We have been empowered. I'd like to suggest that we begin with just looking at the definition of narrative for just one moment. It's a spoken or written account of connecting events. One of the things that we have not been doing in our nations is connecting the 3 tenses, the past, the present, and the future. If we neglect sight of the past, we forget who we are. We forget that Africa is the mother of civilization. Honor your mother and your father so that your days may be long. Can you imagine when we look at the passport of Nigeria, the gateway to Africa, and we scorn it because of some decisions that the Nigerians would have made? But like Ambassador Araucana said, there are a lot of great things that do not make the headlines. Let's connect these tenses to change the narratives. For example, Ambassador spoke to it as well. You know what? Unless we have our own media, we can't depend on others to tell our story. The IMF just recently named 8 countries in Africa and designated them the emerging economies. Uganda, Botswana. I want to stop at Botswana right there. A major on a determined that Botswana was the cradle of civilization where you and I were born. So to despise Africa, to disrespect Africa, is to disrespect ourselves. But I believe that when I heard one of the speakers, oh, I enjoyed it so much, I took a note. One of our speakers said, China is becoming an innovator. And so I wrote and said, Africa, what China is becoming. China is becoming an innovator. Innovation is Africa's foundation. We would not be who we are if it was not for the innovation of Africa. Africa, the innovative minds, the creative minds of Africa gave us math, gave us language, gave us arts, gave us phones. Even today, the highest volume of phone usage is in Africa. Africa gave us cooking, gave us writing, gave us the system of medicine. I heard Dr. Bailey talk about mining. Africa gave us mining. And so I was the only journalist in the Caribbean that interviewed President Mandela. I had a sense of connecting with destiny. I called the Prime Minister who I was assigned to, Prime Minister Ingram, because he was coming into the Bahamas and after he became president and he wasn't taking interviews. I interviewed him because I understand that we cannot move forward as a people, as nations, unless we honor our mother. And so Dr. Tony O'Reilly, the former chairman of Heinz, he was chairman at Heinz at this time, named me as one of the top 14 journalists in the world and invited me to South Africa so that we could observe the transition from apartheid into the democracy. Do you know what I learned that I want to share as I close in the next minute of what I learned that applies to us? You know what the assignment was? We had to go, he bought Argus papers out. Those of you in South Africa, you remember Argus newspaper. He bought it out with independence. Our assignment was to go to Pretoria, Johannesburg, Soweto, all of the provinces in South Africa. And you know what he was doing? He was making the newspaper publishing units a place to develop curriculum. Until, as we would have said, we have a strategic approach that includes our history, that looks to vision of the future of who we want to be, we will not be able to change a generation. The Chinese come, everybody comes with a 100-year plan, and so they focus on their reputation, their generational thinking. And when we come to the negotiating table in the developing countries, Bahamas, the Caribbean, Africa, we are sitting to the table asking them for a job for what we own. No. We have to change the mindset to ownership. We must have an ownership mindset. When you come to my country, you are supposed to be negotiating so that my people would share in the ownership. Africa must change. Every nation, as the ambassador said, the Japanese, they started copying, the Taiwanese, they started copying, the Chinese, the Greeks built the first roads, the Romans went and he changed and improved on it. You started Africa. You were the one who started. And I'm just let me close here with just 3 points. The final thing I'm going to say is that the chairman took me into a room with media around the world, all the New York Times, and they were talking about their future. An action step. We must collaborate to get ready for the free trade coming in January. The second thing, we must collaborate to build a media empire so we can tell our own stories, so that 360, who's made this possible, Robert Alexander and his wife, online right now. I have a radio license, Jams. We can, and we have Nollywood on, we have Dr. Bailey on. What are we gonna do to take the action step to build a media empire? We can have individual ownership, but collaborate and govern by the vision of economic emancipation. In Botswana, we were born in the promised land. We were born economically emancipated. That is what we must do. Restore the original environment in which we were born. That is economic emancipation. Final thing I'm gonna say here, Botswana fell from the grace of peace and prosperity. 1966 was behind, but now Botswana is coming up. And so let's yay, ray for every African nation that we will come up, we will protect our name, and we will change the world.
Dr. Bartlett, well, thank you so much. And what you are doing in the Caribbean is echoing. And what you're doing with the kings and queens of Africa to empower them economically. For example, we cannot ask those who have taken our artifacts to bring it back when we have not secured a place for them. You cannot say, bring back my book when you haven't built a library where to keep them. So it is very, very critical. You are very pragmatic, and your leadership, I am humbled to say, is a pleasure to have your strength among the strength of all our participants here on board. Now, the key thing is, after this event, what do we do? Okay, collaboration, synergy, leverage, focus is the key. Remember, the rays of light or the colors of the rainbow, fragmented, don't mean much. We imagine aggregation of all these rays to create a very powerful radar that can break iron. It's all because of focus. We must be focused. As stakeholders, we must also understand we must invest in what we are the beneficiaries, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it is for this generation or for posterity. And that's the essence of what I'm hearing here. And while His Excellency Ambassador Perry will get ready for the summation, let's give a minute, please, to Professor Chimezie, please to give us a quick summary of some of the ideas. All these will be expatiated, you know, when we all connect and reconnect and start sharing these value propositions. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joe. I mean, I have only 1 minute, but let me see how to summarize. In the past 20 years, I've been playing significantly in African farmer at the continental level. One thing I have noticed is that the way things are structured now, there is no way the African farmer can wake up. Every year, billions of dollars worth of medicines are donated to Africa. For last week, I was discussing with Nigerian team. There's $900 million donated to Nigeria by Global Fund. USAID will do maybe the same amount, DFID. What is wrong about this is that all these come in as medicines. African manufacturers are not able to play in this game. And what does it mean? It means that it's not sustainable. One day these funds will dry up, the African countries cannot sustain it. Over this, I've been asking some questions. Why can't we procure from Africans? The answer always is, they are not good enough. And now I ask, why can't we get them ready? So that has given rise to all my advocacy or rather activism in this sector for the past couple of years. In fact, a few months ago, I just set up a new organization to push this stronger. Really, we need to make sure that Africans are able to play in this game. So in Nigeria, for example, we're setting up a pharmaceutical park. We want to make sure that the manufacturers frog so that we have quality medicine so I can negotiate well. And where does the diaspora play here? 2 ways. We need to have African diasporans invest in medicine manufacturing in Africa. We need to have them also come back home. We have skills, huge skills, diasporan skills on the pharmaceutical sector all over the world. We need to come and know that this is the only way to salvage Africa. The amount, if you plow $2 billion in a country over 2 years, the impact of this, apart from the healthcare and the economy, is going to be huge. If we allow this to continue, there's no way we can come out of it. There's no way a big pharma who sells billions of dollars worth of medicines to Africa will relinquish that. We have to take it out of that situation. And this is my submission here, is that I've heard Ambassador Arikana, and I was almost weepy. We as Africans have to come together. We have to do something. We cannot let things continue this way, and it will continue this way unless we stand up and make it change. So that's my push. I'm hoping that this forum will start thinking. We have players who are on the continent doing great jobs. They want to collaborate with people so that make sure that Africa manufactures the medicines they need for their own population. Health indices is not looking good in Africa. Malaria, HIV, yet we don't have big farmers who support this. We can't continue to rely on foreign medicine donation. We need to build our own capacity. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Prof. And as we're rounding up, I thank you so much. Now, the summation is this: if you don't like the Chinese rice because it's sandy, or if you don't like anything that is happening right now because you've been shackled for how many years? Again, if you don't like the rice, make your own. If you don't like the benchmark, establish your own. And African free trade is a very powerful tool to do a lot for Africa, intra-Africa trade, and so on and so forth. Increase the GDPs of all nations. As a matter of fact, we don't have to be begging anyone for our visas because they'll be begging us to come to us and begging us for our trade. So it's very, very critical we understand this whole thing. But having said that, I would like to use this opportunity to thank all the global audience, particularly those who made this possible, One and Done, and also 360 Wise TV, Dr. Bartlett, yes, CEO Network, and your Economic Emancipation movement, of which I am humbled to be your co-chair there, and hopefully, and the rest of us who have participated. But it would not be fair for me, before I hand this over to Seth, who will transition it to His Excellency Ambassador Perry for his closing remarks, not to really bring to the limelight Miss Sabrina Ben-Salmi. Please, Sabrina, you have 1 minute because you have done a lot to let us know what we're talking about here is not only for this generation, it's for generations to come, by grooming young leaders and ambassadors, of which I think you are worthy of emulation. Lady Sabrina, are you on the line?
Hi, Sir Joe. I am, so we're just trying to turn it right down. Hi, Sir Joe and everyone. I'm just quite surprised. I was caught off guard there. Thank you so much. I'm actually rendered speechless with what's been shared here today. It's very heartfelt, and that is absolutely my vision. It feels very emotional for me. I've been tearing up because we have to start as young as possible. Children are blank canvases. I could not do what I do today if it wasn't for my children. My children expand my mind. They have taught me how to parent them. When I became a mother, I had the perception that I would guide them and teach them and show them. And what they've actually come and touched my heart with is that they have come here with a purpose and for a purpose. And us as parents, we have to facilitate them to find out who they are, to reconnect with why they're here. And we can come together as a powerful force, as a family, to start unfolding that and sharing that. One of my true beliefs is that each one of us in our family are a unique piece to the puzzle. And if we as parents expose them through immersive learning to teach them key life skills as young as possible, I'm telling you, there will be no limits. They can create anything and everything out of nothing. I'm quite, just really shaken because I'm in awe of what can happen for our children when we facilitate the true essence of divinity working through the premise of our children. So thank you, Joe, for your vision, for what you do. For us as a family, we are definitely here to support and inspire as a result to say, like, this is what's possible. So, my 7-year-old being the youngest ever STEM ambassador for Brunel University. And all of these things are not to impress you guys, it's to press upon you what is possible. Age isn't just a number, and collectively, there is no limit to what we can achieve around the world so much. And thank you to Christian for introducing us to this amazing platform.
Thank you so much. We couldn't have said that, and we really appreciate you and appreciate the whole world for listening. Over to you, Serge, and you transition it for His Excellency to give us his closing remark. And thank you so much, folks.
Thank you so much, Sir Joe. So as we bring it to a close, can you imagine that we've had nearly 4 hours of global conversation from around, you know, with people who we don't know, and we're tuned in, and that people are referring to what someone said, or a comment they made, or an insight they had, or a story they had. I find that absolutely remarkable. And I know, you know, what makes a great conversation is when you speak from the heart. And I think that's what's very special here. I opened the session by welcoming His Excellency, members of the diplomatic corps, members of government, past and current, distinguished guests. But when you take all of that aside, what's the thread is this conversation. Every single person has contributed, Sir Joe, to a beautiful conversation, irrespective of title, irrespective of race, irrespective of where they've come from. And the great thing is I can see everyone's expressions as they're talking. We can read all the webinar communications. I can see people from the Caribbean dialing in, Sergio, actually commenting, saying, wow, this is not just about shifting the narrative. We've just started. In reality, we're transforming the narrative, which is what Dr. Bartlett said and Dr. Arikana. How beautiful. You know, so none of this, and I will say this so that everyone is aware, each one of us can make that difference beyond the conversation to beyond the why to the how and then the act. It is the art of the act which creates the change. Okay, you know, and the reason I say that is that when Sir Joe shared his vision, what he's passionate about, I came to the table as an equal on the table, as a team member, to help create a platform that brings together like-minded people. And here are some of the words, and I'll just share this because they're resonating with me before I pass them on to His Excellency Ambassador Perry. Whilst we may hear about the transformational and shifting the narrative, here is some of the key words that are striking for me. It's about purpose, the whys. It's about collaborating. We keep hearing that from all people. The art. We've spoken about trust. We've spoken about the need to do something different. And so my request to everybody today, please, is that when we finish this call, it has just started. It hasn't ended. As Sir Joe said, the only way that we can really keep momentum is there has to be an action. So what is the same way as we say why? I'm going to leave this with you before I pass this on, which is, are you prepared to come back to another engaging, stimulating conversation where we can bring bigger networks that can work together with us around your vision, around your mission and your purpose? Because if the answer is yes, please put that on the webinar chat so we know whether, as Sir Joe said, you are in the arena with us or you're on the sideline. So on behalf of myself and my team, and you've been hearing the name Chris. Well, just in case you're confused, my name is not Chris. Next to me is my, you know, I have a dream team. We all have those individuals. Would you mind if I unexpectedly ask you to say hi? Over to you. This is the famous, this is Chris. And just so that you're aware, we have spent hours working with Sir Joe, thinking about shifting the narrative, the graphics, the wording, the key headlines. But we've done this without an expectation. We've come to the table to help challenge and become the cheerleader for someone else's vision. Okay? And if you can join me, and anyone that knows me, if you actually know what I'm about, you will know that I'm actually the master of collaboration.
Yes.
Okay? I understand how to join dots join the dots at speeds that are unrecognizable. The great thing is I've worked across many continents, and I've been that transformational agent. But I give people as well that opportunity to hear their voice, have their voice heard. And it's because of that I am here today. So humble thank you to everyone around the world, including those, Sir Joe, who have dialed in. There is a whole host of people that are dialing in, listening, and they've been on here for 4 hours. Can you believe? And they're actually commenting. I really liked what this speaker said. I really like this context. So how do we take this conversation as individuals to one collective to be that change ourselves and for the cause? I'm here to help. I'm making that commitment and that pledge. I do so without any requirement. I will give, because when you give, you will receive. So on behalf of myself, Sesh Sukhdeo, the founder of One and Done, and my team, we really, I'm so pleased and proud to have you here with us today. So Joe, thank you for asking and for trusting us to be part of your team. On that note, thank you so much. On that note, His Excellency Ambassador Perry, I would like to bring you in now to formally close with Sir Joe the Global Diaspora Africa Time for Change narrative. It's the time. Now, over to you, Ambassador. Thank you so much.
Sash, thank you very much. And Sir Joe, thank you again for envisioning this and convening it to bring us all together to share our thoughts and dreams and then work together to achieve some of them. I'm always astounded. Our young ambassador, Paolo Bensalmi, reminds us of the why that motivates us to do what we want to do and are trying to do. And then we hear from Brianni and Brian about the role of education and tailoring that to bring out and empower the best in each of us. And then the importance of Nollywood with its creative skills and economic reach, and having a platform to share, this is the reach here, not just the social reality as it is now, because that is not always where we want to be, but also using that tool to present images to take people to where we would like them to be. There's a delicate balance that, but it's a powerful communications tool that exists within Nollywood. I want everyone to think a long time about the note that Ambassador Arikana mentioned about the importance of the Continental Free Trade Agreement that took a long time to birth, but then comes effective in 2021. It creates a great opportunity for trade to mobilize trade within Africa. And the challenge for us is that we become the ones driving that train. Business becomes much easier from people from the outside, because once they get into one market, they can spread across the continent. So we want to be involved in bringing people in and being sure that we benefit from the growth that will come. Again, this platform, I think, is one with Sir Joe, Chris, and Sesh, sort of driving and providing the platform to bring us all together. And Dr. Toby Bailey has talked about the financial instruments and thinking about how you use your resources to mobilize the finance to produce what you want to produce. So that's something we have to keep in mind as we go forward. So again, thank everyone for your participation. We're on to something here. Let's just keep it going. Sergio, back to you.
Well, thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, my brother Sesh. And thank you to each and every one of you, wherever you are. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Until we see you again.
Thank you, and over and out.
Thank
Big
you.
applause, big applause.
Okay. Good job, everyone. Good job.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Sesh.
Joe. Thank you, Sir Joe. Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Val. Thank you, Professor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sesh. Thank you, Dr.
Thank
Bali. Thank you, Paulo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paulo. Good job, young man.
I'm gonna do a movie.
Good job, Chris.
A movie line.
Yeah.
Really take notes.
A movie on a bigger one.
I'm taking notes.
An easier how.
Thank you.
Dr. Bartlett, I'm going to take you up on that offer to do media from the Caribbean. I'm going to take you up on that one.
Dr. Bailey.
Absolutely.
Yes.
One. I appreciate you.
Mr. Joe, thank you so much. This is amazing.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
Prof. I appreciate you for what you do, bringing it home, empowering our people at the grassroots, very critical. If we don't like the Chinese rice because it has sand, wash your own.
Exactly.
Thank you, Sergio.
Thank you so much, Ambassador.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stash. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
One and done.
Have a blessed weekend. Thank you.
Blessed weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Until next
Bye.
week.
Bye, y'all.
Okay.